Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Murray. I'm the president of Futuro RGV, and this is not the way we expected to start tonight's event, but we received word this morning that Edinburg City Council member Jerry Lozano's son passed this morning. So we're going to start with a moment of silence for Jared Lozano. Thank you. I want to welcome all of you to Futuro RGV's 2025 Edinburg Mayoral Debate. This event will be live streamed on the Futuro RGV Facebook page. After the event, the recording will be posted on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Futuro RGV and YouTube, youtube.com/@Futuro RGV. Futuro RGV's mission is to empower and enhance the quality of life in the Rio Grande Valley by providing impartial and nonpartisan information on critical quality of life issues. We are committed to advocating for sustainable economic development, educational opportunities, healthy living, safe communities, environmental stewardship, and cultural enrichment. Through collaboration, engagement, and informed advocacy, we aim to inspire positive change and foster a thriving, resilient community for current and future generations. I would like to recognize all of the elected officials in attendance tonight. I'm not sure if anyone signed in. We do have a current city council. If there are any elected officials, if you would like to stand to be recognized, please do so. Thank you. Councilmember Dan Diaz, thank you for coming. I also want to thank our members and sponsors for making all of our events possible. Our platinum sponsors are Clark Chevrolet, DHR Health, Rio Bank, Rhodes Enterprises, and Sam Garcia Architect. Our diamond sponsors are L&F Distributors and Valley Land Title. Our gold sponsors are Frost Bank and Texas Regional Bank. Our silver sponsor is IBC Bank. Our in-kind sponsors are Casa de Palmas Trademark Collection by Wyndham, Copy Zone, KC Advertising Specialties, South Texas College, Upper Valley Mail Services, and CSL Productions, who are live streaming and recording tonight's forum for us. Thank you, Milo Rodriguez and your crew. If anyone is interested in becoming a Futuro RGV sponsor, please contact me after tonight's event so we can discuss the 6 different levels of sponsorship available. If you're interested in becoming a Futuro RGV member, we have flyers at the sign-in table with our membership QR code, or you can visit our website at futurorgv.net. Your contribution helps us continue our important work, and you will be playing a vital role in improving the lives of our community members. Another special thanks goes out to our Futuro RGV advisors, Ernie Alaceda, Jim Darling, Dr. Fred Farias, Robbie Haddad, Paul Rodriguez, Ford Sasser, and Stephen Wingert. As president of Futuro RGV, I'm proud of the efforts of our board members for organizing events like this. I want to recognize Alex Garrido, our president-elect, who's back at the sign-in table, Kenneth Matty, our vice president, Antonio Alvarez, Davis Rankin, and especially Laura McLeish, who is our treasurer and parliamentarian, who stepped in at the last minute today to co-moderate tonight's event. And especially I want to thank also Albert Morales, our secretary and tonight's event chair. Thank you for all that you do. I'm going to go over the rules quickly, hopefully. I ask, please, that you silence your cell phones. We are live streaming and recording, and we want to make sure that people who weren't able to attend tonight's event have an opportunity to hear the answers to the questions posed to our candidates tonight. The debate will be 90 minutes in length. The candidates' seating forum, order of opening statements, and order of closing statements were determined by ballot order. The moderators will be the only people allowed to ask questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement, and that order again is determined by ballot placement. The moderators will be asked pre-prepared questions, which were prepared by the Futura RGV event committee members, and some of the questions may have been submitted by the public prior to the debate. The candidates were not given the debate questions prior to the debate. The candidates will have 1.5 minutes to answer moderators' questions, 1 minute for rebuttals, and that's if another candidate mentions them by name, and 30 seconds for follow-up questions for clarification only. Every candidate will be given the opportunity to answer each question. The candidates will not be permitted to ask questions of each other. The moderators will switch the order in which the candidates receive the questions. The moderators will seek to enforce timing agreements and ensure a civilized discussion. And then each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing statements. Again, the order was determined by ballot placement. So lastly, I want to introduce our moderators for tonight's event. First, we have KRGV reporter and weekend anchor, Sarah Severa. Thank you, Sarah, for volunteering. And attorney and Futura RGV's treasurer and parliamentarian, Laurel MacLeish. So Sarah and Laurel, you have the floor.
Can you hear me now? Perfect. Make sure that y'all are as close as y'all can be to the microphone. We don't want to have to be shouting here. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. As Mr. Murray mentioned, we're going to start based on the order of ballot when it comes to opening statements. So Mr. Johnny Garcia, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
First of all, thank you to the Futuro RGV and, of course, its members and all the sponsors for making this event possible. My name, again, is Johnny Garcia. I'm running for mayor for the city of Edinburg. The reason I decided to run was because I want to continue to work with our community and our residents and continue to engage with our leaders in our region and make this one region movement mobility so that we can work together and bring more government grants and bring more state grants so that we can continue to grow as one region and not just one city. And so I had decided to run back since 2023 after I finished my election of serving as city council and mayor pro tem. So again, I was born and raised here in Edinburg. I just want to see our city grow to the direction that it's a positive influence for our future generations. And I want everybody to be able to come and enjoy the quality of life that Edinburg has to offer. And of course, where we can raise our families and of course, bring prosperity into the city.
Thank you for that. And then we'll go ahead and go down the line. So Mr. Jonathan Salinas.
Okay, that's my mic on. All righty. Well, I also appreciate everybody coming, especially in the middle of a week with a work week and everything, and appreciate your interest and devotion to be informed, to be educated, and to know what the candidates stand for and why they want your vote. So, as they said, hello, everybody. So I am running for the mayor of Edinburg, and I was born in McAllen. I grew up in Far, graduated from PSG North, and was active at my church at Iglesia Biblica here over in McAllen. I earned an associate's in psychology from South Texas College in 2013, and a bachelor's from the Legacy Pan Am in 2015, where I served in the student government. After graduation, I worked in journalism. I wrote for RG Vision magazine, the Brownsville Herald. I freelanced for several outlets. I was hoping to see my old editor, Steve Taylor, here tonight, but so he could not make it. But I also worked for several organizations like Lupe, which is known as La Unión del Pueblo Entero. I was on the executive committee for the Sierra Club and several other organizations. So I have a large activism background. Throughout the pandemic, I returned to working in the industry jobs that I had been doing before I had graduated. It was a political decision. I had broken with the traditional Democratic Party politics that I was usually affiliated with, taking more of a working class orientation. And so I decided to run because I've seen that these are not horrible times in our, in the world. There's so many conflicts throughout the world. There's a lot of uprisings amongst working people here in the United States. And so I wanted to provide an alternative of the working class and for the working class. And so those are the issues that I wanted to bring up. And I look forward to expanding on them throughout the night. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And then moving on to Mr. Omar Ochoa.
Yes, okay, great. I am a proud product of Edinburg. I was born and raised here, went to Freddie Gonzalez Elementary School, Memorial Junior High, and graduated at the top of my class at Edinburg North High School. I am running for mayor because I want to see our city continue in a positive, optimistic direction, free from all of the baggage, the drama of the past. I am committed to leadership for all of Edinburg. I have served my life in public service and for the community. I went to the University of Texas at Austin on a full academic scholarship, graduated from the Business Honors Program and a master's in accounting, became a CPA. I have significant experience in financing and budgets because I worked for the CFO of General Motors, analyzing billions of dollars in business results. I then came back to UT Austin for law school and again graduated near the top of my class there. Afterwards, I worked for 2 federal judges, went to work for a law firm in Houston where I won an award in Washington, D.C. as one of the best young trial lawyers in the country. But I brought it all back to where it started here, my hometown in Edinburg, and started a successful law firm based right here in the RGV. Crucially, I served as your city attorney for almost 6 years, and I advised the city council, the city manager, and all city departments in all aspects of the city. I know the city backwards and forwards, inside and out, because that's what it took for me to give great advice. Without a doubt, I am the most experienced and knowledgeable candidate for mayor in this race. Now, at the start of this debate, I want to set the expectations. When you hear the responses from the candidates, ask yourself, who is giving real ideas for the city of Edinburg and backing those up with plans? Our city deserves a mayor who can dive into the details and provide real plans on how to move forward. I am for transparent leadership. I am not about shying away from the public at all costs. I want to thank all of the candidates for being here because our city deserves somebody who's willing to submit themselves to public scrutiny, to be boots on the ground, and to show up for you, the community, and to look forward to working with you, the community. Thank you so much to RGV Futuro for putting on this program. I'm really looking forward to answering these questions and sharing my vision for the future of Edinburg with competence, with intelligence, and with real plans for our future.
We're going to start with the first question, and it goes to Mr. Salinas. Please hold your applause till the end. Edinburg is one of the fastest growing cities in the valley. What is your plan to manage rapid growth while ensuring infrastructure, such as roads, drainage, and utilities, keeps up with the needs of residents?
So it's a very fast-growing city. That's true of several cities throughout the RGV economy. It's a growing economy. It's a growing industrial sector. We not only see more of an industry, but in some of the larger sites, but throughout other sectors of the economy, there's a growing hospitality industry. And so, as the economy grows, so does the working class. And I decided to throw my hat into the race because I want to provide an option to people who are part of the working class, people who have to work for a living, people who have to pay rent, people who are struggling. I know what they go through, and although the economy keeps growing, the wages really don't. Things continue to being precarious for people who rent, skyrocketing rents. And so there is a lot of investment in Edinburg. There is a lot of investment into this area. And so when we talk about things like infrastructure, how those things get paid for, I've talked about shifting the tax burden from the property taxes to taxing the most profitable corporations here. And I think for people who, have their labor exploited, to get some of those things to get reinvested back into the community is one of those ways that I would do that.
So we're going to go ahead and then Ochoa, you're going to ask the same question here when it comes to growth and development. Yes.
Could you remind what the question is?
Yeah,
please?
absolutely.
I'm sorry.
To make sure we hit it.
Yes, Edinburg is one of the fastest growing cities in the valley. What is your plan to manage rapid growth while ensuring infrastructure like roads, drainage, and utilities keeps up with the needs of residents?
So it's true. We are blessed to be the fastest growing city in the RGV, one of the fastest growing in the state. But with that comes the responsibility of city government to keep up with infrastructure demands. More people means more wear and tear on our roads. More subdivisions means changes in drainage patterns. What the city really needs to do is to have a master growth plan and then mirror plans around that, a master parks plan, a master drainage plan, a master road plan. These are the ways that we will make sure that as the city grows, the city is making the proper infrastructure investments that are going to keep everything maintained the way that they should be. And if we do that, then we can ensure continued economic prosperity for our city. Because as infrastructure goes, so does the growth of our city. So master planning, making sure that we are living within our means, that our tax rate and that our budgets reflects all of that master planning is the most important way that our infrastructure can keep up with our growth.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia?
Sure. First of all, we are not just one of the fastest growing cities in our area. We are the rank 1 and 5th in the state of Texas. When I served on the city council, that's always been one of our major issues with the growing pains, and it's part of that process. And so with the infrastructure, what we're needing to do is continue to find an aggressive grant writing department that can help bring some federal funds and state funds so that we can continue to keep the taxes lowered and continue to work for our residents, especially our elderly and our disabled. And of course, we have to be fiscally responsible for our budgets and spend exactly what we need and not what we want. We have to redirect the dynamics and focus on building up our structure first, our strong foundation, before we can continue to build the city forward.
Perfect. We're going to go ahead and move on to question number 2. But before we move on, I want to remind all the candidates, we do have the time cards up here. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer each question. So second question, public safety. What steps would you take as mayor to support police and fire services while also ensuring accountability and building trust in the community? Mr. Ochoa, you're going to go ahead and answer that one first.
Absolutely. So when I was city attorney, I was the lead negotiator on behalf of the city for the union contracts for both our police department and our fire department. And one of our main concerns and considerations was making sure that each of those departments had wages that kept them competitive so that we don't lose our police and fire to other cities. We have great services provided by these individuals. We need to give them the training and the budgets that they need to keep our community safe. As far as the police department goes, I feel like they've actually getting pretty close to outgrowing their current building. And so as the next mayor, I would like to see the possibility of either constructing a new police department or constructing substations so that we can spread them out and have better response times throughout the city. Same with the fire department. I think they need better infrastructure as well. I will comment that the COP department right now, the community outreach version of the police department, does a really good job. Lots of events across the city. I think the city government can do a better job of promoting those events, making sure that all of our residents and neighborhood know how engaged our police and fire department are, and to be able to take part in all of those events so that they can see them for people. And see that they actually care and are involved in community policing on their behalf.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move over to Mr. Garcia. The same question for you when it comes to public safety, police and fire services.
Okay. First of all, I was part of the meeting confirmed that was done with the fire department and the police department when I served on the council. And so it's very important to have a working relationship with our police department and our fire department. But we also have to realize that public works is also part of our safety. And so we have to continue to grow our budget to support all three different departments so that we can continue to provide the safety that our city needs in times of, when we have destruction or when we may have here in our city, that they can all respond with the proper resources and the proper equipment to do their job in a safe manner. And like I tell all the officers, at the end of the day, we all want to go home safely to our families.
And Mr. Salinas, go ahead.
Okay. Alrighty. So, I mean, it's nice for police to have unions. It's nice for firefighters to have unions. I think every worker, every workplace in the Valley should have those unions as well, just as a comment. Well, first of all, in terms of safety with the public, I, have talked about, everywhere I go that there should be community councils to look at reports against police and people who file complaints against them. Currently, very little to nothing gets done. I've talked to people who have spoken about being harassed by the police, people involved in social justice who have faced police harassment. And so I would carefully look at those things. In terms of wanting to increase police funding, the two highest things on the city budget are the police and the firefighters. I mean, they totally dwarf and outnumber any department, whether it's the public works programs, which I agree, those should be expanded. I think we should look at what's commonly talked about, waste, fraud, and abuse, with those two biggest line items as well. That's, but as Mr. Garcia was suggesting, another way to address safety is to address social issues. We just had a shooting at a Stripes just up the road from somebody who was suffering from mental health issues, from addiction. Well, the greatest cause of homelessness are evictions. And so I would create social programs for people who are struggling and to prevent those incidents where police feel that they have to shoot somebody.
The next question. Many residents are concerned about traffic congestion on major roads, like University Drive and Monte Cristo Road. What solutions would you propose to improve traffic flow and safety? Mr. Garcia, we'll have you answer first.
Thank you. First of all, we need to look at the main thoroughfares that we have here in the city and look at expanding by purchasing the right-of-ways of the residents that are still in the area of the high traffic. But second of all, we need to start making more lanes that are actually double turning. If you look at many of the streets that we have, we only have one turning lane. And so by adding a second turning lane or being able to go straight will alleviate some of that heavy traffic that we're facing right now. But again, it's part of the growing pains that we're suffering right now. And as we continue to build the infrastructure of our city, we continue to improve on our roadways and make sure that everybody has accessibility in just more than one route, that we have multiple routes to get to where we need to go.
Mr. Salinas?
Okay, yeah. So as somebody who lives by UTRGV, I definitely see the congestion. Like one of the ways you know that school's in session is when it takes you a few minutes to leave your neighborhood. Quite a lot of that has to do with the fact that students can't afford parking on campus, or there isn't enough parking. Something that's often been talked about is a parking garage. I don't have inside knowledge or sources on discussions within the city as perhaps others do, but there's talk within the community of people saying, well, yeah, some people were considering the discussion of a parking garage, and instead other things were built in its stead. And so, yeah, I agree that, as the economic growth comes, so does the infrastructure has to come to try to align with it. And so that I think goes back to and speaks to, in general, the question of the works programs, how to fix roads, how to include infrastructure in neighborhoods and communities, most of them poor and working class, that don't have drainage. I don't have drainage in the neighborhood where I live, in the little cul-de-sac at the slum where I live. Every time it rains, you can be pretty sure it's going to look like several lakes out there. So I think that questions like that in terms of congestion goes back to the public works question.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, thank you. I'll just say at the start here, this is a little bit of an interesting format. It's hard sometimes to engage in all the discussions, but I think it's important. As far as the parking garage goes, let me touch on that real quick. That's a project that's actually moving forward with the city right now, but it was a project that was delayed because when original funding was approved, there were no plans in place, there was no feasibility study done, so there was not any real knowledge about what it would be, how it would be constructed, and how much it would cost. When we take on big projects like that, we are not taking care of our taxpayer money. And as the city leaders, we need to do that because literally everything the city does involves spending your tax dollars. And we need to be able to protect those. Now, talking about transportation, it goes back to what I talked about. Treating us like a small city is not going to get us to where we need to be. We need to act like the big city that we are and stake out who we're going to be years from now. We need a master plan for all roadways in the city. We do a pretty good job on north and south corridors. We really need to ramp up our east-west corridors. Wisconsin needs to be expanded. Chapin needs to be expanded. These are main arteries that are really going to bring more economic investment if we can just build the infrastructure in place to bring that into fruition. And at the end of the day, getting people mobile, whether it's having a bus system that gets UTRGV students from an apartment campus to the university, or having mobile stations around downtown, making it easier to park there. These are the types of creative solutions we need to be talking about and that the mayor of the city of Edinburg needs to have the vision for to tackle.
Alrighty, this next question actually is going to be tackling the courthouse parking. So as we know, there's been a long-standing shortage of parking spaces, particularly for customers of small businesses in the area. And it's kind of gotten worse with the opening of the new Hidalgo County Courthouse. So in response, the city has implemented temporary solutions like 2-hour parking limits, as well as constructing a new parking garage to alleviate congestion. Now, do you all think that these temporary solutions will fix the main problem? Yes or no? If not, then what are other solutions you would propose? Mr. Salinas, you're going to go ahead and answer that one first.
Yeah, so I think it kind of goes in circles, no iteration intended there, but because I think it does go back to the question of congestion. When the original city courthouse was built, Edinburg was not the size that it was then, and so yeah, with the building of a larger courthouse, with more staff, more employees, and all of those kinds of things, that is going to continue to be an issue. But I think this just goes back to the question of works and the improvement of the drainage. But to answer the question directly, have these temporary solutions, so-called solutions, worked? Well, I don't spend too much time there. I don't have that much reason to be at the courthouse. But the times that I have gone through there, yeah, it is pretty congested. But I think it would go back to the previous question of the parking garage. If we can't keep expanding sideways and there aren't enough space, there aren't enough lots, the buildings are occupied, or at least most of them, the solution is to build up. Every time you go into a big city like Dallas, Houston, what's the first thing you notice? You notice a tall building. So I envision in about 15, 20 years, that's going to be one of the defining features of the city as well.
Mr. Ochoa?
Can you ask the question one more time?
Yes, absolutely. So this question is pertaining to courthouse parking. There's been some temporary solutions put into play, like 2-hour parking limits, as well as the construction of the new parking garage. So do you believe that these temporary solutions are an actual fix? If not, what are other solutions you would propose?
No, they are not an actual fix, nor do I think that they were actually intended to be an actual fix. The city is trying to work with what it has in place right now. A feasibility study for downtown parking was finally done a few years ago and determined that about 750 new parking spots were needed to adequately prepare the downtown community. The parking garage that is under construction is only going to provide about 250 more. So the city is going to continue to have this challenge in downtown Edinburg about how to get people in and out. Parking is only one facet of it, but what are other mobility lanes that we can do for downtown? How can we easily bring people in and out of downtown? Because the downtown is a jewel for the city of Edinburg. We've got the county courthouse that I think we should all be proud of, that we have such a beautiful building located right here in Edinburg. We have a new redevelopment happening of older buildings, including the Citrus Live. We have our amphitheater that's putting on great shows in downtown, and we have an arts and cultural center now in downtown Edinburg as well. How do we come up with creative solutions to these issues? You can have parking off-site, right, with buses coming in and out. You can have more mobility lanes so that cars can more easily come in. You can have a roundabout that goes around the courthouse as opposed to people fighting to be able to take left turns, and you're sitting there for 5 minutes and 2 lights right before you can do that. But these are the types of creative things that we really need to study and have due diligence before we take on big projects.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia?
Sure. First of all, I think they need to change the parking limit. I think if we were to bring back the meters and put them back into around the courthouse area and limit it to 4 hours instead of 2, anybody that goes into the courthouse for daily business knows that you can't get in and out of the courthouse within 2 hours. And then second of all, we also have a major county property off of 12 and Loeb, which is where the old original county jail used to be, that needs to be used as parking. And so there is plenty of parking around our area, but it makes it hard for any attorneys or anybody going to visit the courthouse wearing high heels or wearing dress shoes to commute, 5-6 blocks from the courthouse. So I think if we were to increase our bus transportation and bring more buses in to continue to transport the people coming into the courthouse to the front of the courthouse, I think it would take a lot of the aches and pains that we're going through right now.
Thank you. The next question deals with the economy and jobs. And Mr. Ochoa, you'll be first. How would you work to attract new industries and create higher paying jobs in Edinburg, particularly for UTRGV graduates and young professionals?
Yeah, this question is actually very near and dear to my heart. I had to leave the Rio Grande Valley to get my education, and then I had to get work experience outside the Rio Grande Valley, but I had a dream to always come back home and share that. How do we have high-paying jobs here in Edinburg so that our youth are not having to make that decision for themselves? It's very important that we have more job training for the future jobs. We have new industries like Zoho, a big tech company, coming here to the Rio Grande Valley. We have SpaceX over in Cameron County. We have the ability to have more trade jobs here in Edinburg. As mayor, I would like to propose building a new trade school on the north side of Edinburg so that we can have more electricians, more plumbers, more HVAC specialists, people who can have high-paying jobs that are outside of the traditional professional jobs. But I think working with UTRGV, working with the school district, working with South Texas College to be able to have those types of proper job training, that will allow us to go out and then start recruiting industries to come to Edinburg. And if we do that, then I guarantee we're going to have the boom in Edinburg that we all deserve and that we all know is coming. With so much land to be able to develop, with so many resources here in the city of Edinburg, there's no reason why Edinburg cannot be the main economic driver for the Rio Grande Valley.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia?
Well, okay, excuse me. First of all, I think that we need to increase the grid in our area. If we're going to increase industrial or bring in more businesses from the outside, if we don't have the electricity to support these kind of big industries or companies, it's not going to do any good for us as a smaller residents have their homes. But by us increasing the grid, and we can do an interlock agreement with our local school district and our community college, it would help bring in other businesses into our area that affect our area and help growth for our city and our region.
Thank you. Mr. Salinas?
Yeah, so I think that there are some things that really don't require much reinforcement, and I think, the large industries wanting to invest area because they see there's a lot of people, there's a lot of land, there's a lot of potential to establish, here in this part of the RGV here in Edinburg. And so, in terms of questions of like where investors decide to invest in all that, and why there's such a job shortage for graduates from UTRGV and all that, those come to questions of the global economy. There are just some truisms here. I mean, we live on an international border with billions of dollars in trade. In some sense, actually in about two senses, it's uncontrollable. You know, in a sense, you can't stop the growth, but in another way, you can't really control it. And so I think that those things are just going to establish themselves. But, you know, in terms of the job shortages, you know, people who graduate from like ETRGV, you know, it's the same thing of those economic questions. There is a global crisis within the global capitalist system, a crisis of profit, and the first people to get cut are the professional layers, the upper middle classes, the people who the employers during the pandemic called non-essential workers. And so, you know, some of these questions come to that questions of the global economy. And so, you know, I didn't hear any specific proposals on how, you know, the other candidates would, you know, attract it, but you know, I think that's because of my view that these things will, you know, just come on their own.
Can we have a response since he did refer to the other candidates?
I think we can go ahead and do a minute response.
So this is a reflection of needing a mayor that has the experience to be able to work from day one. To assert that you can't control growth is the wrong attitude. We are here to make master plans, to bring in economic prosperity to our city, to really make sure that we are set up to be the main economic driver here in the RGV. That's what city government is for, and that's what your mayor should be focused on. Now, as far as the plan to bring in industry jobs, I just talked about it. Having a trade school on the north side of Edinburg that's going to train people on jobs outside of the professional atmosphere. Working with UTRGV to make sure that they are promoting and having the same degree programs that we can then go out and grab real industries, real high-paying jobs to be located here in the city of Edinburg.
Okay, and then Mr. Garcia, if you want to have 1 minute to respond.
Sure. That is, again, why it's very important to have good leadership in our city. And I want to remind, of course, the audience that we are a council manager government form, which means that we have to have the right city manager, the right city secretary, the right city attorney, and the right municipal court coordinator that can help drive the city forward in the direction it needs to go.
Thank you. Let's see. So there's a 30-second follow-up.
Yeah, so again, you know, it's just, you know, an assertion. Oh, well, you know, to say that growth can't be managed is absurd. Okay, but where's the solution? Well, the solution is to build more schools. Okay, so to create more of a heavier crisis of students that have degrees that they can't find jobs for. So, you know, creating more schools, although as great as it is to train people in the trades, you know, that still does not address the question as it was posed, you know, like what exactly? And so I didn't hear a specific, and I don't think you did either. So, yeah.
Okay, that's time. We're going to go ahead and move on to the sixth question, small business support. Small businesses are the backbone for many communities, including here in Edinburg. What role do you believe the city should play in supporting local entrepreneurs and family-owned businesses? And Mr. Garcia, be first.
Thank you. First of all, I do operate a small business myself, and I believe that the small businesses in our city are the driving force of the entire economy, you know, here in our city and in our entire region. But again, we have to continue. There is programs through the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, that allows for startup programs for small businesses. We just had the ribbon cuttings this morning and this afternoon. So it's all about working together with our city, especially with the mom-pop businesses, to ensure that they are the future for us to continue to grow, because usually the mom-pop businesses are the ones that have their children, their grandchildren, that invest back to our city, that go to school here, and they continue to work here and bring back prosperity into the city and continue to grow.
Thank you, Mr. Salinas.
Yeah, so absolutely. I also agree that small businesses are essential. That's what adds the color to a city. You know, after the franchises, you know, who are the small businesses? And, you know, I'd establish, and I'd encourage others to help me in this, to establish grants and to establish centers for aids to small businesses. I think often the costs of operating could be tough for them, especially if the economy's down, if spending is down. But another aspect that I think is forgotten when we talk about small businesses are the small farmers. The outskirts of the city are, technically not incorporated; they're left to the county. But I think that we can do more to try to stimulate those small farmers as well, and to provide grants to small farmers out in the outskirts of the city, to provide grants to small businesses to help them stay afloat. Thankfully it didn't happen here in Edinburg as much as it did in other cities, but there were so many businesses that were just crushed and were never able to open again when we had the pandemic in 2020 and in 2021, and that was just because they couldn't keep their heads afloat. So I think that there should be programs and grants by the city in place to help those small businesses and small farmers to cover their operating costs.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, I actually agree that there should be grants, but when I was a city attorney, I was also the attorney for the Edinburg Economic Development Corporation, and I assisted in creating a grant for small businesses to improve their facades. And we have many businesses in the city of Edinburg who have benefited from that. Starlight Burger is a really good example of that, Paloma, and others. As your mayor, I want to continue with that grant program, working with the EDC, and even expanding it so that we can target specific regions of the city of Edinburg and make sure that the small business owners on the east side, on the north side, who need the help are the ones who are targeted to be able to get that help to improve their facades and to improve their operations. In addition, I propose an aid department, whether it be a small business department or a small business group that's going to help people who want to start small businesses in the city of Edinburg. I'm a small business owner myself, Johnny, right? As you know, it's very hard when you first get started, right? Who do you go for permitting? Who do you go for trash? Who do you go for water, for light? If we have a business center, right, that's going to answer these questions, where people can go one-stop shop, not have to run from one corner of Edinburg to the other to get their basic questions answered, it's going to be a lot easier to start a business in the city of Edinburg. And that's going to create more jobs. That's going to create more opportunity. So I would love for the city of Edinburg to facilitate small business development.
Thank you. The next question deals with youth and education. And Mr. Salinas, you will be first. How would your administration collaborate with Edinburg School District and UTRGV to expand opportunities for students and keep young talent here in Edinburg?
Well, just in terms of the overall question of education, I do think that we have to be an aid to the teachers and to the educators. As we know everywhere, teachers tend to be overworked, overstressed, large classroom sizes. So, I'll definitely pay attention to that. In terms of how to keep people in the valley, I think that goes back to the question that we were discussing earlier regarding the economic development, how much growth there is, the kinds of jobs that exist. In a sense, I would agree with the sentiment that Mr. Ochoa expressed with training and equipping people for the trades, because as I'm sure we all know, it tends to be the college, university educational paths that tend to be emphasized, but trades kind of takes a seat in the back. And so, with all the industry throughout the valley, the industrial sectors, that I think is really a growing backbone and the growing skeleton of the valley. It's the growing industry sector. So I agree with the sentiment of improving trades, but I would just start a bit earlier. I would try to start earlier, try to start in the junior high levels and the high school levels to show people that if they don't want to get a professional education, then that's okay too.
Mr. Ochoa?
Yes, so partnering with institutions like UTRGV, with the school district, very critical for the growth of Edinburg. But it shouldn't stop there. It should include the county, it should include the state, it should include the federal government. I know it's not part of the question, but I think it's all a philosophy, right, that I want to emphasize, that these partnerships are incredibly critical. The UTRGV is a crown jewel of the city of Edinburg. What it does for our city is amazing. It trains the future job workers of our city, and it creates industries in our city. Healthcare is an amazing thing going on right now in the city of Edinburg. We have two major healthcare systems. We have a medical school located here at UTRGV. I would love to work with the school district and UTRGV at the same time to come up with a real healthcare pipeline that includes not just jobs in the healthcare industry as nurses, as doctors, but also for medical research. If we can establish a true medical research institute here in Edinburg, that's going to create industries in the future with high-paying jobs, keeping our youth, right, having a brain gain instead of the brain drain that we suffer from. So this partnership is incredibly critical, and we just need to have vision to see what the industries of the future are and making sure that the school district and UTRGV are working together to equip those workers for that.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia.
Sure. First of all, I believe that education and communication is the key to our success for our youth. And I believe that, we actually have 3 health industries in our city, which of course is DHR, South Texas Health System, and Driscoll Hospital, that we're part of the council when Driscoll Hospital was built. And so I think it's important to do interlocked agreements and do partnerships with, not only the university, the different school districts that we have in our city, but also the state and county level, where we can create some type of internships within the different departments, and a lot of the students can be able to get their hands-on experience here personally and hopefully stay in the city of Edinburgh or in the valley and not go out.
Thank you. Moving on to a quality of life question. What is your vision for improving parks, recreation, and cultural spaces so that families and residents of all ages can enjoy a higher quality of life in Edinburgh? Mr. Ochoa, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, so not only is it a quality of life issue, it's a public health issue, in my opinion, right? There's studies that show that an increase in parks and in trail spaces actually decreases diabetes in the community. I myself love being outside, avid 5K runner and such, and I want to see our city move forward both physically, right, and figuratively. And so as mayor, I'm committed to expanding our parks and our trails. A lot of times in different parts of the city, you have neighborhoods that are close by to currently built parks. There's an example on the east side off of East 107. Only about a half mile away, there's 3 subdivisions close to Municipal Park, but there's no trail, there's no sidewalk that will connect that neighborhood to the park. If we do something as simple as that, it's going to get people to be able to use the parks more often. There are other areas of the city where we need to build parks so that people can have a more active lifestyle. But that again goes back to master planning. Where do we want our city to be? Where's the growth going to happen? So that way we can start planning ahead as to where new parks are going to go. But I agree that an increase in parks and trails, very important for the quality of life and for public health purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Sure. First of all, again, quality of life is very important for each and every one of us. If you have quality of health, it also means that less people go to the doctor. But we've also have in the past, we've had inter-agreements with the school district, and we see where there's a high volume of youth, and we want to try to keep obesity down or diabetes down. And so we've worked with the school district and made joint parks together in a lot of different areas that the school district has big property that we can use together and keep costs down for the whole entire city. Because any issues that we have when it comes to youth, it's not a school district problem, it's a city problem. And we have to tackle it together and understand that we're all here to grow our city together in a positive influence way, but a healthy life for everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Salinas.
Thank you. Well, first I would like to investigate and sort of analyze this term quality of life, because I've noticed when it's often used, in my view, it tends to really be asking, well, how can we improve entertainment for the upper middle classes in Edinburg. And to some of the things that I was addressing from the very beginning, things like low wages, the question of amnesty for undocumented workers, which is also an Edinburg issue. It's not just a national issue. It's an issue in every city throughout the country. I think that's a quality of life issue too. And so I think when, we hear this term quality of life, something I'd ask all of you to keep in mind is to just add the words quality of life for whom. And so, yes, expanding parks and these cultural centers is fine, but I think that the question of low wages for the working class in Edinburg. I'm a steel worker. I've been working at factories. I'm a factory worker. And so I know, what that's like for people in the working class, drainage for working class neighborhoods. That's a quality of life issue as well. And on the artistic and cultural question, I would just like to pay a great respect to my late friend Ernesto Vergara, who passed away about a month ago. He had a play that he performed here with a playwright. It was called Despierta. And something that I learned after Ernie passed away was that city councilmen were trying to influence his play, trying to line edit it to, include Edinburg in here. And I've noticed that tendency is all pervasive throughout all of the city's arms of culture, through its festivals and everything. There's always a question of, how can we not upset them? How can we not upset city people? So I would keep politicians and politics out of cultural events.
Okay, the next question deals with affordable housing, and Mr. Garcia, it'll go to you first.
Sure. As far as
Well, let me ask you the question first. Housing costs are rising across South Texas. What policies or partnerships would you pursue to ensure affordable housing options are available in Edinburg?
First of all, of course, we have to have a relationship with the HUD program, for the housing. And the thing about it is that we have to continue to find resources to be able to build housing and help our own economic growth. We have a lot of contractors here that can help build a lot of these homes at a lower cost, instead of us going out somewhere to bringing in other people to build in our own community. We can bring our own contractors here and help students learning the construction work, the plumbing, the electrical, and build more housing here to keep costs down and be able to first offer it to the families that are low income and that are just starting up in their families.
Thank you. Mr. Salinas?
Yeah, so I think there are quite a bit of housing units that are vacant, and they're vacant because people can't afford to live in them. The other candidates on here, excluding myself, they are landlords. They rent property out to people. I know a worker at a McDonald's who was sleeping outside of a bench at the McDonald's where he had worked at because he had gone evicted. That's the main cause of people becoming homeless. So there is housing. The question is, why is it not affordable? It comes down to people who perhaps lose jobs for unforeseen reasons, unforeseen emergencies with their health or their family's health. And so I'd establish assistance programs for people who cannot afford to stay in their homes. There is nothing like that here. To help people form a tenants union, to help people establish unions, create an office for people to come together and to organize together, because it's not just about me. I'm not running here as an individual and saying that I have all the options, but I'm saying that the working class can come together, and I would hand the office over to the working class, and we can decide together how to address these issues. Thank you.
Mr. Ochoa?
Yeah, there are some really great organizations working on this specific issue of affordable housing. South Texas Affordable Homes is a great organization. When I was city attorney, I worked with them on some interesting land issues that were coming up in their Jaguar Heights development, which is a new subdivision that was just opened earlier this year. That's just east of Economides High School. You also have the Edinburg Housing Authority that has properties as well dedicated right for low-income housing. So I think the city of Edinburg can nurture partnerships with these entities to ensure what are your plans, where are your developments happening. But really, when it comes down to it, the city of Edinburg, as I mentioned, really needs to get involved in more master planning. Spot developments in different areas of the city is not going to work. And it's not going to give us the guarantee that we're going to have housing at all levels, income levels, and at all job levels. If we have a master plan that designates, where housing is going to go, the type of housing that's going to be there, we can look forward to the future and actually start working into that, rather than just depending on industries and economics to do it for themselves.
Thank you. Moving on to question number 10 regarding transparency and leadership. How do you all plan to promote transparency in city government, particularly when it comes to spending decisions, contracts, and public input? We're going to go ahead and start with Mr. Salinas.
Thank you. So if you take a look at any agenda for the City Hall, there are a few things that will stand out to you. The first third or quarter of it is all the, we're going to declare November 2nd Mickey Mouse Day and all of that. And then there's a few things that the city secretary will talk about openly. But then the real stuff, how, who's going to get a contract for from the economic development, how are we going to spend what, how is the city facing different kinds of litigation and all of that happens behind executive session. So I think that there should be a summary of those things discussed in executive session for the people to know and to hear and to understand what kinds of things are being discussed and being deliberated. And I think another way, the most important way for me, is again, I'm trying to run to represent the working class and provide that perspective. And I would say to the working people in Edinburg why they can continue to depend on me and to see that transparency is because I will be part of the working class. I will remain part of the working class, and I would hand over the office to that class to advance its own interests.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa.
No? Okay. Yes, absolutely. Transparency, conservative fiscal management, taking care of your tax dollars, all of these things go hand in hand. And it's important that the city residents always know what the city is doing and why they decided to do it that way. I would love to see a contract rubric created by the city so that you know exactly how contracts are scored and why votes are taken the way that they are. So that way, the basis for why a contract is awarded is always present and public. The other thing that I would really love to do, and I think this is something a little bit innovative, Mr. Salinas is right. For every city council meeting, the whole packet that the city council gets is made available for the public. This includes contracts, it includes bids, it includes drawings, schematics, all kinds of things. I would love to see an AI database where we put all of that information into, and residents can actually ask questions of that database. What did the mayor say on this particular city council day about this specific issue? And you can interact with it. How much is being spent by the city on this particular contract? And the database will spit out these answers. Having more transparency for our residents is the right thing to do, but it's also what the city owes you. And as your next mayor, transparency will be at the heart of what the city of Edinburg does.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. First of all, I think that the word transparency is a little bit kind of overused or used loosely. I just think that we got to be honest and be truthful with the taxpayers and be able to explain to them what the city needs versus what the city wants. And that's how we can continue to be, honest with them. I want to be able to bring a lot of the items that are discussed in executive to the front where that the citizens can actually hear. But being here tonight gives us an example. I want to say that there's probably, let's say, 150 people in this room, but yet we have a population of 109,000 people. We have to continue to find ways to educate our residents and let them know what is happening. by doing a newsletter and attaching it to the utility bill, or find a way to reach the rest of the residents that are not engaged. Because we have the same people that are constantly coming to our meetings. They represent the rest of the residents, but we want to hear from everybody in order for us to continue to bring the city forward in the direction that it needs to be. It's not just for a select few, it's for the whole citizens of Edinburg. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question deals with regional collaboration. Edinburg is part of a growing metro area. How would you work with neighboring cities and Hidalgo County on shared issues like drainage, transportation, and economic development? Mr. Ochoa?
Yeah, there are some very important regional issues that need to be tackled. Drainage is a really good one. For as much as we can do as the city of Edinburg to improve our drainage systems, we're tied into the rest of the cities as well. Animal control is actually a huge regional issue. For as much of the animal population as we can assist here in Edinburg, if other cities are not doing what they're supposed to, those animals are going to come over here. Water is a key issue of the future, right? Where are we going to source water from if we are running low from it in our traditional sources? That's also a very key regional issue. So it's very important that the city of Edinburg continue to work regionally. And when we do that, I think you see some really high success. UTRGV is a good example of this. The city, the Pan Am campus and the Brownsville campus merged so that they can have more access to state dollars. The MPO is another example of this. Cities in Hidalgo County and Cameron County branded together so that we can get more tax dollars from TxDOT for our projects. When we work regionally, we can fix larger issues that us, the cities, cannot do on our own. But at the same time, we always have to look out for our Edinburg residents. We know that Edinburg is the future, and we need to make sure that we have plans in place to do that, whether we're acting regionally or on our own, because ultimately the mayor and the city council are responsible for the growth and development and the safety of the city of Edinburg.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia?
Thank you. I actually had the honor and the privilege to serve on the Rio Grande Valley Development Council when I did serve as city council. And so what it is that we work together with all the mayors from across the region, you know, from all the way from Brownsville all the way towards Rio Grande City. And so we have to continue to empower and unify all of those cities together so that when we go to the day in Austin, that we can go as one region and represent all the whole region together and bring in more funds to support our area where we need drainage infrastructure, mobility. Our transportation is very important, especially to support our elderly that don't have rights to get to the doctor. So when we work as a region, we get to hear the ideas from the different mayors from the different cities that are going through problems similar to ours, and we can work to make this whole region a better place for everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Salinas?
Thank you. So this question reminds me of how sometimes it's talked about, well, shouldn't the Rio Grande Valley be its own state? And, I kind of just thought that, what city would be the capital? Edinburg, right? No, but yeah, I certainly think that, when it comes to questions of transportation, animal control, and all of these things, that the valley is really interconnected in so many several ways. And so, yeah, I was talking to somebody today, I forget where or who, and they had mentioned that there's talk about system for rail between Brownsville and Laredo being discussed in some places. I think that's an excellent idea, having a kind of transit system, trying to think of ways that, we can modernize and improve, transportation. We've seen an example with UTRGV having a shuttle bus transporting students from as far as Rio Grande City all the way to Brownsville and everywhere in between. And so I think transportation is really going to be the key in terms of interconnecting the valley in that sort of way. But to just briefly touch on the class question that I've been going back to, in particular, I do see beyond Edinburg as well, and I've mentioned, helping the working class establish unions, and so I'd also try to be an inspiration and try to encourage other working class people throughout the city to do something similar and to run on platforms that can advance all of our interests together. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. Should the city raise taxes to increase funding for public services, or should it focus on spending efficiently to improve services with existing revenue? Mr. Garcia, you're first.
First of all, I think that a tax is a problem for every single one of us. And what we need to do is either remain the tax base the same or try to lower it, but by offsetting it with using grant money for other entities that we need to work on, like the infrastructure, the fire safety. But a tax is a major issue for all of us, but we have to all work together, because we can reduce the taxes, let's say, to 50 cents, or 50 cents for the 100. But if the appraisal district continues to raise the value of our homes, it's not going to do any purpose. So we have to work with our state legislators so that we can continue to try to improve our appraisal values. And I want to create a resource center that we can help families where they can get different educated on tax exemptions, whether it's senior freeze or homestead exemptions, other exemptions that exist that we are not familiar with. If we can create a resource centers that will guide families, and I think it would help continue to decrease the taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Salinas.
Very short answer on the first question. No. That's a short answer. Should the city spend better? I sort of talked at the opening of certain programs that we can look at, the two largest line items on there. But as I had also mentioned, I think we should pretty much do away with property taxes. I think families are taxed out of their homes much too often. There's a way that we could make that a progressive tax rate for some of the larger homes, but in general, I'm opposed to property taxes. But Mr. Salinas, how are we going to pay for things? Well, as I mentioned, through taxing the profits of the largest corporations in town. There's for-profit hospitals. There's a number of factories, large retailers that make millions in profits. And so, again, I would go back to shifting it away from property taxes. I'm not sure it's an issue of spending, really, but in terms of who's being taxed.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa.
Short answer also, no, the intention is not to raise property taxes so that we can expand the city. But one thing that I think is very important to understand is that the city is not able to tax profits. The state law is very specific as to what the tax sources are for a city, and that's property taxes and that's sales taxes, and that's it. So if you're going to reduce property taxes, you have to be able to offset that somehow. So for me, my approach to this is to keep our tax rate low as we possibly can. And we do that by operating more efficiently, by making sure we're not spending outside of our means, and by making sure we are not taking on big projects without plans, so that we get stuck in something that we then have to pay more for than we anticipated. Second, we have to increase revenue streams for the city of Edinburg. We have a landfill that makes a lot of revenue for the city, as much as any bridge in Far or McAllen. We need to nurture that business and grow it, and then expand into more revenue streams. Our airport is a major revenue potential of the future. If we can expand runways, if we can fix drainage, we can get more cargo operations at our airport, which will increase our revenue stream and alleviate pressure on our property taxes. And ultimately, we do need a partner with the county, with the state, with the federal government, with the school district, to be able to have partners when we take on big projects, including public-private partnerships, because we cannot grow our city on the backs of taxpayers. I propose a grant department that can be fixated on finding these outside dollars, working together so that we can grow Edinburg smart and efficiently.
Respond after Mr. Garcia.
I don't think
He didn't mention you by name. Okay, but the rules say if he addresses you by name.
Let's go to the next question. How can the interests of a city seeking to grow be balanced against the property rights and desires of rural or suburban residents who prefer to maintain their existing way of life? Mr. Salinas, you're
I'm
up
sorry,
first.
could you repeat the question?
Yes.
It's about rural growth?
Yeah. How can the interests of a city seeking to grow be balanced against the property rights and desires of rural or suburban residents who prefer to maintain their existing way of life?
Right. Well, as I mentioned before, I think the people who live in the outskirts and the non-incorporated areas tend to be neglected. When it comes to questions of annexation, that should be something that should be directly discussed with them. Just to go back to the previous question about taxes and state law, the city could adopt a home rural charter amendment. Calling for a gross profit surtax on corporations above a certain threshold. And Edinburg already has the power to create special districts. A council could vote to create a profits district fee. But yeah, the law in Texas would have to be adjusted to authorize a true corporate tax rate for the municipalities. But my campaign is about pledging to fight for that authority. So, in terms of getting that change at the state level, I would help organize people to push for those laws at the state level. So, it's not just something that ends and starts with the city, but it can start there. And as I had said earlier, I think that we should provide assistance to those small farmers, even though they're not incorporated in Edinburg, in order, like you said, to allow them to maintain their style of living and their way of life.
Mr. Ochoa?
I'm sorry. Could you ask one
Sure,
more time to make sure I can address what's being asked?
How can the interests of a city seeking to grow be balanced against the property rights and desires of rural or suburban residents who prefer to maintain their existing way of life?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways that we can get at this. And so let's just be clear about something. If we're talking about the outskirts of the city, there is no involuntary annexation anymore in the state of Texas. In the past, cities used to be able to annex outside territory, but it is not possible anymore under current state law. Only voluntary annexation is allowed for unincorporated areas outside of the city. So in that regard, rural residents, or I guess rural property owners, don't really have much to fear because they can just choose not to be voluntarily annexed by the city. If we're talking about people who live in rural areas within the city limits, that's a different question. This probably pertains more to the north side of Edinburg and farther east sides of Edinburg. This goes back to kind of what I was saying before. A master growth plan for the city of Edinburg. Who do we want to be and where do we want to be? And let me be clear, there's no one person that has all the answers or even knows all the issues. It requires community input. And as the next mayor, that is exactly what I want to make sure that we're doing. So if there are rural residents, actually living in Edinburg, rural residents that are concerned about this, I want to hear those concerns. And I want to hear what they think we should be doing in those territories otherwise. But getting back to it, it's all about master planning so that we know where we're going and how we're going to get there.
Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. First of all, the only time the city gets involved with outside city limits is when there's a ETJ, which is the extended territory jurisdiction. But we work very closely with the county, and I've always said it's important to have a relationship with our county officials and our state officials and even our federal officials, because we can always have a unified code that doesn't affect the outside residents, but it aligns itself to be a safe home for them just as well as us, as far as with amenities go. So they will always have their peace of mind having their own properties outside of city limits. Like Omar was saying earlier, that is something that the state has protected the families, and you cannot just voluntarily annex them unless they do it themselves. So, those that live on the outside city limit don't have to worry about it, but at the same time, you have to think of the future of your family as far as the amenities go when it comes to safety. How close is there a fire department to your residence? How close is there a police department for response or an ambulance? So, those are the big pictures that we as a family decides what's important for our family and what's not. We have the right to choose. Thank you.
Thank you. This is our last question, so we go ahead and have some time for closing statements afterwards. So, in an era of limited public funds, what public-private partnerships would you all explore to help finance and build public infrastructure? Mr. Ochoa, you can go ahead and start.
This goes back a little bit to the infrastructure question that was posed earlier. There are some really interesting financing opportunities now allowed under state law. There's things called public infrastructure districts. There's MUDs, which are municipal utility districts. These are all allowed under state law. The city of Edinburgh currently doesn't engage in those, and the truth is most cities in the Rio Grande Valley don't engage in those. But this year, there was more PIDs and MUDs than there's ever been in the state of Texas starting. And so I think the Valley may be a little bit behind on this issue. And as your next mayor, I really want to explore this along with other creative solutions to bring in those infrastructure dollars. And so I think it's just important that when we approach these public-private partnerships, that they make sense. I think we've had some instances in the past where the private part was a little bit on the winning side versus the public part. And as the city attorney, I always made sure when we got into these negotiations that the public was getting what it deserved from those arrangements. And so moving forward, we need to engage in these because, again, we can't grow our cities on the backs of the taxpayers, but we also can't give our city away to private developments. And so having that careful balance is very important.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
I agree that continue to work with private investors, but at the same time continue to create a balance for the community. And more importantly, to be truthful and honest with the residents and show them exactly what we're planning to do. You know, we can talk about having a master plan in place, but unfortunately, you know, anytime you have a new exchange of leadership, that master plan goes out the window and not everybody continues to follow through. You know, we had a master plan over 25 years ago that we were going to counterclockwise the parking of the courthouse area, and it's still been like that for over 25 years. You know, so we have to understand that whenever we do a master plan, that it is something that is tangible and that it is for everybody to use and see the same vision in order for the city to continue to progress forward. Because every time there's a change of leadership, if it's not their idea, they decide that that's not the direction we want to go. And the only ones that lose is our taxpayers. Thank you.
Mr. Salinas.
Thank you. Yeah, so I certainly think that, you know, when it comes to those kinds of partnerships, some of the things that could be worked on are on those most important issues, the most essential issues like the construction of roads, you know, infrastructure with water, with drainage, with construction of new homes, perhaps hospitals, those schools, you know, those kinds of things. The emphasis for me would be on assuring that those businesses that the city does actually work with provides good wages for the workers whom they're contracting. I think that that's a question that's often not really looked at or emphasized when it comes to those kinds of partnerships and those kinds of questions. So that would be the priority for me.
Thank you. We are now going to go into closing statements. We will be doing these in ballot order, and each candidate will have 2 minutes. So, Mr. Garcia, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity of hosting this event. I think it's been a very productive event. But I just want to remind everybody that it is very important to voice your opinion. It's very important to go out and go vote. You know, early voting starts October the 20th to the 31st. Election day is November the 4th. You all are the ones that have the power to make a difference. You need to go, share your thoughts, share your vision with your neighbors, and make sure that everybody goes out to vote. This is a very important race. It is an open seat. You have 4 candidates that are on this platform. Everybody has their own personal vision. Everybody has their own personal opinion. Everybody's got their own personal choice. But it is your duty as a registered voter to go and vote. And that is your democratic process vote, to be able to make a difference and say, this is a candidate that we wanted, and we respect it, and we continue to move the city forward in whatever capacity has been in place for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Salinas.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate everybody coming and showing your interest, and again, your devotion to the city and to the public life that we all share. I entered this race to represent the interests of the working class. I think that those are people who are often forgotten when it comes to politics, when it comes to elections. That's a perspective that's often missing. And so although, you've heard from all of us, and I've expanded on some of the suggestions that I've put forth, that I've made, I am not here to say that I have all of the answers. My campaign is not like the normal campaigns that are very individualistic, that say, I've got these solutions and I've got these 8-point plans and all of these fancy proposals. But I'm here to say that instead of the question being around me, I would counter propose that it's we, not me, and that we can think of ways to improve our society and to make it more equitable. And I would hand over the office, if you will, to the working class of Edinburg and to the entire RGV. And so to those people who are the working class in Edinburg, I'm speaking to you directly, that I am the working class alternative on this platform. Yes, every individual has their own ideas and everything, but I think the really dividing line between all of us is that there are 3 other people who, represent the interests of the local capitalist class, the people who are interested in profits, people who are interested in things like speculation and stocks and bonds. But I'm here to hand the office of mayor to the working class. So again, it's not me, but we. Thank you.
Mr. Ochoa.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this. So I just want to say thank you one more time to Futuro RGV for putting this on. I think this is a really great event for the public to come out and see what everybody's plans and hopes are for the future of the city of Edinburg. I love talking about our city. I was born and raised here. I love talking about our future. If we didn't get a chance to answer your questions tonight, don't worry. There's still 3 weeks left until the start of early vote, and I hope we'll be able to get that. But tonight, it's important for everybody to see what leadership means. It means showing up for your community, being open to public scrutiny, right? And answering the tough questions for everybody. This is a very important election. This election is not about class warfare. This election is not about East versus West. This election is not about young versus old. This election is about the past versus the future. Do we want to look back and return to days of drama, of politics, of chaos? Or do we want to move forward into a brighter future where we are working together, community over self, people over politics, new ideas, new visions, new ways of doing things, and not being held down by the political rivalries of the past that we don't even remember how they started in the first place? I am for new ways of doing things, having a vision for what our city needs to be, and then rolling up my sleeves, getting into the details, asking the right questions, and making sure that we are on a path to get there, because we owe our city the plans for the future, to be transparent about them, and then to be ready to answer the tough questions along the way. I believe that I am the candidate offering the plans that are relevant to the city of Edinburg and offering the plans so that you can see how we do, in fact, plan to get there. I am energized about this election. I hope you are too. I hope you will join us if you believe in this cause for moving Edinburg into a new future, to move Edinburgh forward together with intelligence, with competence, and with real plans. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, and I hope everybody that's watching really enjoyed this too.
Once again, I want to thank our members and our sponsors, and please pick up the flyers in the back with the QR code or our other membership flyers. Consider our membership in our organization. It's only $20 a year. You can help support events like this. Again, if you would like to consider becoming a sponsor for Futuro RGV, please come and talk to me after the forum in a couple of minutes. I want to thank our candidates for providing an informative debate. Thank you so much. Finally, I want to thank our audience. Thank you all for showing up. I know this is really important, and I'm hoping that a lot of folks are watching this on our live stream, and if not, let people know again that the recording will be available on our Facebook page and on our YouTube page. Don't forget the last day to register to vote is Monday, October 6th. Early voting takes place from Monday, October 20th through Friday, October 31st. And Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. Local government has a direct impact on our lives. Being informed and voting is essential to a thriving democracy. Make your voices heard by voting. Thank you, and good night.